Okay. Welcome all, day 3, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. A new heaven and a new earth. The inspiration for the title of this book came from a Bible prophecy that seems more applicable now than at any other time in human history. It occurs in both the Old and the New Testament and speaks of the collapse of the existing world order and the arising of a new heaven and a new earth. We need to understand here that heaven is not a location but refers to the inner realm of consciousness. This is the esoteric meaning of the word, and this is also its meaning in the teachings of Jesus. Earth, on the other hand, is the outer manifestation in form, which is always a reflection of the inner. Collective human consciousness and life on our planet are intrinsically connected. A new heaven is the emergence of a transformed state of human consciousness, and a new earth is its reflection in the physical realm. Since human life and human consciousness are intrinsically one with the life of the planet, as the old consciousness dissolves, there are bound to be synchronistic geographic and climatic natural upheavals in many parts of the planet, some of which we are already witnessing now. So, when he's talking about how they came about this title for this book, A New Earth, he's also referring to another testament which mentions a new heaven and a new earth. So, there's again, एक belief system है पुराना. अगर आप बुरे काम करोगे तो आप नरक में जाओगे. You will go to hell and you will not go to heaven. So, that's, I don't know, but a lot of people have you know stuck to these beliefs that there is something known as a heaven, or there is something known as hell, which is outside the purview of earth, whereas the whole concept or heaven and hell is here on planet earth. बाहर कुछ नहीं है. अर्थ के बाहर स्पेस है. कोई हेवन नहीं, कोई हेल नहीं है. इट इज जस्ट कॉल्ड द मेटाफिजिकल, which is abundant. There is nothing as heaven and hell there. Heaven and hell exist here on planet Earth, and we experience it during our own lifetime. हमें कहीं जाके नहीं एक्सपीरियंस करना कि हेवन कैसा है या हेल कैसा है. It's there based on where you are on this journey of consciousness will determine whether this is heaven on earth or it's the hell on earth. कहीं जाके नहीं आपको पता लगेगा. So the basic concept of the new earth comes from the fact that each and everything on planet earth, because of the movement of the rotational capacity of earth on its own axis, is increasing. So the vibration of the earth is increasing. In fact, there was a scientist who coined it. It's called Schumann's resonance. So from 6.9, the earth's frequency has doubled to somewhere around 13.9 in 2012. So it took 31 years from 6.9 to 13.9, and it is expected that this vibrational frequency of earth on its own axis will increase from 13.9, which was last measured in 2012, to somewhere around 21 or 22 in 2029. So जिसको पहले 31 years लगे थे, उसको अब 16 साल लग रहे हैं. That is why everybody is referring to as that the Earth's frequency or the Earth's vibration is increasing. So we, as the inhabitants who are living on planet Earth, need to increase our vibrations. We need to increase our vibrational frequency. And one of the common ways of increasing our own vibrational frequency is with a lot of spiritual work, is with a lot of meditations, so that we are able to match that frequency of that change of Earth's original vibration on its own axis. So if you see, after 2012, you will have, that's the whole thing, that there are so many natural calamities. COVID was one. It was right in the middle because there was a major shift happening on the vibrational frequency of Earth. And all these natural calamities, tsunamis, earthquakes, war. Anybody thought war would be there? There's war now. So all these things are signs that the Earth's vibrational frequency is increasing. So, in order for us living on planet Earth, we need to match that vibrational frequency by working on our own selves and raising our own vibrational frequency in order to match this change. That is why in the last 3 years, you will notice that there is a lot of talk about spirituality. There's a lot about, people are talking about meditation, spirituality, alternative healing modalities in a much, much broader horizon and a much, much broader framework. Because of this shift happening here, it's very important that we as individuals also start working on our vibration frequency. And that new earth is the earth where the vibrational frequency is going to be high. And in order for us to be fit for that new earth or that new world, we need to work on our vibrational frequency in order for us to survive. Chapter 2: Ego, the current state of humanity. Words, no matter whether they are vocalized and made into sounds or remain unspoken as thoughts, can cast an almost hypnotic spell upon you. You easily love yourself in them, become hypnotized into implicitly believing that when you have attached a word to something, you know what it is. The fact is, you don't know what it is. You have only covered up the mystery with a label. Everything, a bird, a tree, even a simple stone, and certainly a human being, is ultimately unknowable. This is because it has unfathomable depth. All we can perceive, experience, think about is the surface layer of reality, less than the tip of the iceberg. Underneath the surface appearance, everything is not only connected with everything else, but also with the source of all life out of which it came. Even a stone, and more easily a flower or a bird, could show you the way back to God, to the source, to yourself. When you look at it or hold it and let it be without imposing a word or mental label on it, a sense of awe, of wonder arises within you. Its essence silently communicates itself to you and reflects your own essence back to you. This is what great artists sense and succeeded in conveying in their art. Van Gogh didn't say, "That's just an old chair." He looked and looked and looked. He sensed the beingness of the chair. Then he sat in front of the canvas and took up the brush. The chair itself would have sold for the equivalent of a few dollars. The painting of that same chair today would fetch in excess of $25 million. When you don't cover up the world with words and labels, a sense of miraculous returns to your life that was lost a long time ago when humanity, instead of using thought, became possessed by thought. A depth returns to your life. Things regain their newness, their freshness, and the greatest miracle is the experiencing of your essential self as prior to any words, thoughts, mental labels, and images. For this to happen, you need to disentangle your sense of I, of beingness, from all the things it has mixed up with, that is to say, identified with. That disentanglement is what this book is about. The quicker you are in attaching verbal or mental labels to things, people, or situation, the more shallow and lifeless your reality becomes. And the more deadened you become to reality, the miracle of life that continuously unfolds within and around you. In this way, cleverness may be gained, but wisdom is lost. And so are joy, love, creativity, and aliveness. They are concealed in the still gap between the perception and the interpretation. Of course, we have to use words and thoughts. They have their own beauty, but do we need to become imprisoned in them? Words reduce reality to something the human mind can grasp, which isn't very much. Language consists of five basic sounds produced by the vocal cord. They are the vowels A, E, I, O, U. The other sounds are consonants produced by air pressure, S, F, G, and so forth. Do you believe some combination of such basic sounds could ever explain who you are, or the ultimate purpose of the universe, or even what a tree or stone is in its depth? So, when we are talking about the start of this chapter, we are talking about ego. Ego, as rightly mentioned, is just something that we are identifying ourselves with. एंड स्पेशली जब हम हर चीज पे एक लेबल लगा देते, आई डोंट लाइक दिस, आई एम सो एंड so that identification, or that association with the word I, जो भी उसके बाद आ रहा है, that's coming from the premise of your egoistic part of mind. For example, I am this, I am so and so's son, I am so and so's husband, I'm so and so's wife, I'm so and so's son. Anything, any association which we are making when we are talking about I, myself, that is giving that rise to that ego inside of us. और वो कुछ नहीं कर रहा है, because that's the tip of the iceberg. Deep down, when we get to know who we truly are, और हमारा वो source के साथ क्या connection है, and it's just that we are taking this breath inside, and when this prana goes inside of our body, how is it helping us, my entire body take the oxygen? Nobody knows. ऐसा क्या चीज होती है, ऑक्सीजन तो पूरे हवा में है, मेरे को क्यों नहीं मिल पा रहा है when it comes to a person who is probably nearing his deathbed? There is oxygen, but why is the oxygen or not flowing inside the body? Because that's the consciousness inside, that's the prana inside, that's the chi inside, and that is the true self. Anything other than that is an identification and association of the I, which is nothing but a mere ego. So when it comes to seeing ourselves, we need to go down from the tip of the iceberg to see who we truly are. Who am I? That's a question we need to ask. बिकॉज जब तक हम उस क्वेश्चन का आंसर नहीं देंगे और हम आई की आइडेंटिफिकेशन और एसोसिएशन में रहेंगे, it's very difficult for us to get rid of that egoistic part of our mind because we are consumed and stuck there with that part of our mind. So when it comes to asking this question to yourself, who am I? I am so and so. I am so and so. I am ये, I am you. वो हमेशा उसमें रहेंगे हम. But yes, once we get to, this is what this whole book is all about, is to disassociate that identification and disentangle all that is what we are stuck, what we have made sure is stuck to that I from the question who am I. हमें उसी पे काम करना. And that's how the whole book is about getting rid of that egoistic association or egoistic identification with the I that we have been living till time. The illusionary self, the word I embodies the greatest error and the deepest truth, depending on how it is used. In conventional usage, it is not only one of the most frequently used words in the language, together with the related words me, my, mine, and myself, but also one of the most misleading. In normal everyday usage, I embodies the primordial error, a misperception of who you are, an illusionary an illusionary sense of identity. This is the ego. This illusionary sense of self is what Albert Einstein, who had deep insights not only into the reality of space and time, but also into human nature, refer to as an optical illusion of consciousness. That illusionary self then becomes the basis for all further interpretations, or rather misinterpretations of reality. All thought process, interactions, and relationships, your reality becomes a reflection of the original illusion. The good news is, if you can recognize illusion as illusion, it dissolves. The recognition of illusion is also its ending. Its survival depends on your mistaking it for reality. In seeing who you are not, the reality of who you are emerges by itself. This is what happens as you slowly and carefully read this and the next chapter, which are about the mechanics of the false self we call the ego. So, what is the nature of this illusionary self? What you usually refer to when you say I is not who you are. By a monstrous act of reductionism, the infinite depth of who you are is confused with a sound produced by the vocal cords or the thought of I in your mind and whatever the I has identified it. So, what do the usual I and the related me, my, mind refer to? So, that's a question which everybody needs to ask. Because ये जो हमारी आई की एसोसिएशन है ना, ये इतनी स्ट्रांग हो चुकी है या इतनी इनबिल्ट हो चुकी है, that's very, very difficult to get out of it. Because we feel this is it. There's this illusion of this I is the reality. I repeat, the illusion of this I feels like the reality. For example, we are in this book reading course. I have two thoughts on my mind. Am I reading the book? A lot of you will say, yes, you're reading the book. But this is the illusionary self of me thinking that. But when I'm talking about the real, the true me, it actually goes that the book is being read through me. I am not reading the book. Because जब मैंने आइडेंटिफाई किया कि I am reading this book, that's doing nothing but creating a more bigger image to that illusionary self of mine, which is not real. Reality में the book is being read through me. मैं कुछ नहीं कर रहा हूं. I am just going. There are things being done through me. Because if I am the doer, मैंने उस I को इतना बड़ा कर लिया है. देखा मैंने ये किया. I am doing this. That's the exact thing that is happening with us all throughout our way 24/7 during the day. So this question of who am I, इसको आपको अपने पास रखना है आज से. And whenever you are in this thing, now is where that awareness needs to come into everybody to check, am I doing this or is it being done through me? Because there is a power which is working. There is a universal energy, God, light, Almighty, whatever name you want to call it. That is what is making things happen. It's not you and me. Everybody here, we are just via mediums, and just because we are there on planet Earth does not make us into that inflated I that I am doing this. और जब वो थॉट आ गई हमारे अंदर, सबके अंदर, जब भी वो आती दैट आई हैव डन दिस, आई एम डूइंग दिस, मैंने किया है, इट्स नथिंग बट वी आर जस्ट गिविंग अनदर चॉकलेट टू आवर ईगो सो दैट वो ईगो सेटिस्फाई रहे और ईगो धीरे 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 ब्लोट होके बड़ी 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 और बड़ी होती रहे. द मोमेंट वी स्टॉप दिस आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ आई कि मैंने किया है, that is where that recognition of this thought कि I am not the doer, it's being done, it is being done through me, this illusion dissolves. That is where your ego starts to dissolve. Because जब मैंने वो thought पे पावर दी कि मैं कर रहा हूं, I am doing this, it's nothing but I am just inflating the ego balloon bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But all you need to do is just prick that balloon, that illusionary self of that I, and say it is being done through me. I am not the doer. एकदम ego शांत होकर बैठ जाए. Bit difficult. I'm not saying easy. But get that in your thought process. Start. जहां पे आपको ये लग रहा है ना, मैंने किया, ये मैं, योर रिलेशनशिप, ये मेरा रिश्तेदार है, ये मेरे बच्चे हैं, everything is part of the ego. Each and everything is part of the ego. Because any association with I, me, myself, mine, is an illusion created by the ego, nothing else. When a young child learns that a sequence of sounds produced by the parent's vocal cords in his or her name, the child begins to equate a word, which in the mind becomes a thought with who he or she is. At that stage, some children refer to themselves in the third person. Johnny is hungry. Soon after, they learn the magic word I and equate it with their name, which they have already equated with who they are. Then other thoughts come and merge with the original I thought. The next step are thoughts of me and mine to designate things that are somehow part of I. This is identification with objects, which means investing things, but ultimately thoughts that represent things with a sense of self, thereby deriving an identity from them. When my toy breaks or is taken away, intense suffering arises, not because of any intrinsic value that the toy has. The child would soon lose interest in it and it will be replaced by other toys, other objects. But because of the thought of mine, the toy became part of the child's developing sense of self, of I. And so, as a child grows up, the original I thought attracts others' thought to itself. It becomes identified with a gender, possessions, the sense perceived body, a nationality, race, religion, profession. Other things the I identifies with are roles: mother, father, husband, wife, and so on. Accumulated knowledge or opinions, likes and dislikes, and also things that happened to me in the past, the memory of which are thoughts that further define myself of self as me and my story. These are only some of the things people derive from their sense of identity form. They are ultimately no more than thoughts held together precariously by the fact that they are all invested with a sense of self. The mental construct is what you normally refer to when you say I. To be more precise, most of the time it is not you who speaks when you say or think I, but some aspect of that mental construct, the egoic self. Once you awaken, you still use the word I, but it will come from a much deeper place within yourself. Most people are still completely identified with the incessant stream of mind of compulsive thinking, most of it repetitive and pointless. There is no I apart from the thought process and the emotions that go with them. This is the meaning of being spiritually unconscious. When told that there is a voice in their head that never stops speaking, they say, "What voice?" or angrily deny it, which of course is the voice, is the thinker, is the unobserved mind. It could almost be looked upon as an entity that has taken possession of them. Some people never forget the first time they disidentified from their thoughts and thus briefly experience the shift in identity from being the content of their mind to being the awareness in the background. For others, it happens in such a subtle way, they hardly notice it, or they just notice an influx of joy or inner peace without knowing the reason. जो भी हमारा यहाँ पे आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ आई है, I mean, very beautifully explained. When we are born as kids, is that name given by me? No. Parents, elders, somebody in the family, some guru, pandit, that person gives you a name, whatever is your name in this current lifetime. But that journey of that transition from who you truly were to that name which is given by somebody else, और हम उस नाम को, उस आय को, उस आइडेंटिटी को पकड़ के बैठ गए हैं कि यही तो मैं हूं. If that was the reality, that means you should have come here with that name imprinted on you. No. You do not come with the name imprinted on you. You do not come with the religion imprinted on you. They are all given to you when you land here through your parents, elders, guides, whatever. But that is an association given to you, which you gradually pick up, and you are then fixed with that illusionary self of yours, that I, that name. और हम उसी को पकड़ के बैठ जाते हैं, मैं तो यही हूं. Anything to do with this person, this name is me. Is this your original self? No, it was a name given to you, and not even you chose it. It was given to you by others. और हम उस आय को पकड़ के बैठ गए कि मैं तो यही हूं. That's the reality. Who we truly are, we realize it when we are aware of it when we are a child, but with the passage of time and the name given to us by somebody in our family, we start living that personality and we start associating with that personality more than what we truly are. And we start getting engulfed in that I, और हमारी सारी एसोसिएशन उस नेम से, उस I से स्टार्ट हो जाती है. And we forget who we truly are. जो हम पैदा हुए थे, when you're born, kids, especially in the first 2 or 3 years, they are pure consciousness at play. उनको कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता. उनको तो नाम भी नहीं समझ आता, मीनिंग तो बात की बात है. But धीरे धीरे how they start becoming so possessive of their things? Because that is what is being given to them from their elders as part of a belief system. The first time the child wants to share, he will share. But he will see that the other person is not sharing. Why am I sharing? So that's the first experience he has. Okay, he is different, I am different. I am so and so, he is so and so. बस वहीं से हमारी आइडेंटिफिकेशन स्टार्ट हो जाती है विद दिस आई. दिस इज माइन, दिस इज नॉट माइन, दिस इज मी, आई एम. बट जो हम ट्रू नेचर में थे जब वो चाइल्ड पैदा होता है, and he starts getting to know, like they mentioned here, whatever the name in the book, he doesn't say I am hungry, he says Arjun is hungry. But then slowly when he starts saying and starts associating himself with this name, gets that formation of that bigger inflated I, that I am Arjun. और ये सारी कहानी वहीं से शुरू होती है और हम उस आय के पीछे ऐसे पड़ जाते हैं कि बस यही हमारी दुनिया है, इसके अलावा तो कुछ है ही नहीं. But whereas when we become spiritually more aware, that is when we realize who we truly are. And then that gives us a certain glimpse into the actual question when somebody asks us, who am I? The voice in the head. The first glimpse of awareness came to me when I was a first year student at the University of London. I would take the tube subway twice a week to go to the university library, usually around 9 o'clock in the morning, towards the end of the rush hour. One time, a woman in her early 30s sat opposite me. I had seen her before a few times on that train. One could not help but notice her. Although the train was full, the seats on either side of her were unoccupied, the reason being, no doubt, that she appeared to be quite insane. She looked extremely tense and talked to herself incessantly in a loud and angry voice. She was so absorbed in her thoughts that she was totally unaware, insane of other people or her surroundings. Her head was facing downward and slightly to the left, as if she was addressing someone sitting in the empty seat next to her. Although I don't remember the precise content, her monologue was something like this. And then she said to me, so I said to her, "You are a liar. How dare you accuse me of when you are the one who has always taken advantage of me? I trusted you and you betrayed my trust." There was the angry tone in her voice of someone who has been wronged, who needs to defend her position lest she become annihilated. As the train approached Tottenham Court Road station, she stood up and walked towards the door with still no break in the stream of words coming out of her mouth. That was my stop too, so I got off behind her. At street level, she began to walk toward Bedford Square, still engaged in her imaginary dialogue, still angrily accusing and asserting her position. My curiosity aroused. I decided to follow her as long as she was walking in the same general direction I had to go in. Although engrossed in her imaginary dialogue, she seemed to know where she was going. Soon, we were within sight of the imposing structure of Senate House, a 1930s high rise, the university's central administrative building and library. I was shocked. Was it possible that we were going to the same place? Yes, that's where she was heading. Was she a teacher, student, an office worker, a librarian? Maybe she was some psychologist's research project. I never knew the answer. I walked 20 steps behind her, and by the time I entered the building, which ironically was the location of the headquarters of the Mind Police in the film version of George Orwell's novel 1984, she had already been swallowed up by one of the elevators. I was somewhat taken aback by what I had just witnessed. A mature first year student at 25, I saw myself as an intellectual in the making, and I was convinced that all the answers to the dilemmas of human existence could be found through the intellect, that is to say, by thinking. I didn't realize that thinking without awareness is the main dilemma of human existence. I looked upon the professors as sages who had all the answers, and upon the university as the temple of knowledge. How could an insane person like her be part of this? I was still thinking about her when I was in the men's room prior to entering the library. And as I was washing my hands, I thought, I hope I don't end up like her. The man next to me looked briefly in my direction, and I suddenly was shocked when I realized that I hadn't just thought those words, but mumbled them aloud. Oh my God, I'm already like her. I thought, wasn't my mind and incessantly active as hers? There were only minor differences between us. The predominant underlying emotion behind her thinking seemed to be anger. In my case, it was mostly anxiety. She thought out loud. I thought mostly in my head. If she was mad, then everyone was mad, including myself. There were differences in degree only. For a moment, I was able to stand back from my own mind and see it from a deeper perspective, as it were. There was a brief shift from thinking to awareness. I was still in the men's room, but alone now, looking at my face in the mirror. At the moment of detachment from my mind, I laughed out loud. It may have sounded insane, but it was the laughter of sanity, the laughter of the big bellied Buddha. Life isn't as serious as my mind makes it out to be. That's what the laughter seemed to be saying, but it was only a glimpse, very quickly to be forgotten. I would spend the next 3 years in anxiety and depression, completely identified with my mind. I had to get close to suicide before awareness returned. And then it was much more than a glimpse. I became free of compulsive thinking of the false mind made I. The above incidents not only gave me a first glimpse of awareness, it also planted the first doubt as to the absolute validity of the human intellect. A few months later, something tragic happened that made my doubt grow. On a Monday morning, we arrived for a lecture to be given by a professor whose mind I admired greatly, only to be told that sadly he had committed suicide sometime during the weekend by shooting himself. I was stunned. He was a highly respected teacher and seemed to have all the answers. However, I could as yet see no alternative to the cultivation of thought. I didn't realize yet that thinking is only a tiny aspect of consciousness that we are, nor did I know anything about the ego, let alone being able to detect it within myself.